You're here, which means that you've found Spirit Crumbs, leading you to your inner light worker. I will be sharing how these tiny little hints from the universe have led me to where I am today. I hope that by hearing my story and the stories of others, you'll pick up your own spirit crumbs along the way that will lead you to somewhere magical. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Let's see where it takes us.
Hello and welcome to another Cosmic Energy Report. I'm Emily from Emily and Her Stars and Things That Make You Go Woo.
And I'm Andrea from Spirit Crumbs and Concrete and Crystals.
We are recording at the last possible second because I don't know if anyone has noticed, December has been weird.
The weirdest. I don't think I've ever had a month that has shook me to my core the way that this month has.
So I was so hopeful that once Pluto left Capricorn, it would give you a break. But it has been a very bizarre shift. Everything feels like we're in an alternate timeline. And we talked so much after the election, I think, last month about, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where we're going. And it still feels like we're standing on quicksand a little bit.
It's so crazy because I'm in Canada, you're in the US, and there's so much going on, even in politics between the countries and stuff, that, like, even in our country, like, we haven't had this kind of, like, wild energy in so long. And, like, I think it's needed, and I think it's happening everywhere, like Germany, like France, there's a lot of countries having the same thing. But I think, like, I'm feeling it on an individual level and then witnessing it happen out in the wild, and I'm like, "Oh my God," like, I think it's obviously for the better, and I think I genuinely feel that in my heart. Doesn't feel great when you're in the middle of it. I mean, I love a tower moment, but I think this one, like, I genuinely do. I like changes. I like things to be moving. I hate stagnation, as I've said a million times on Spirit Crumbs. It's my biggest fear. But I think at this point, I'm like, can we just be stagnant for like 1 minute? Like, I feel like I haven't had the stagnation to justify all of the change and transition. Normally, it's because I've had a plateau for so long that I'm like, "Oh my God, can we do something different?" But I feel like I've done nothing but change things constantly this year, so I don't know. I think it must be hopefully preparing for something better for the collective and for myself selfishly.
It's so hard because going into and recording like Capricorn and thinking about 2025, I so want to dive into the Gating Light episode with you, which we are going to be recording here just after Christmas. We're going to get it up a little bit later this year than we did last year. We always like to have it out on the solstice, but I think everyone will understand.
I think we're all going to need to be in our blissful energy of blissful unawareness for the next couple of weeks. I don't think we want to know what's coming in Gaining Light until we have to. So I think all of us can just still marinate on this Capricorn energy, which there's still a lot going on. I know astrologically, Emily will have a lot to share, but I think, yeah, I think we're going to need to have a little bit of a pause before we get into 2025 energy fully.
I totally agree. And I think so much of the message I keep getting over and over from other astrologers, other intuitives, my own intuition, being in meditation, working with all this energy is self-care. That's a huge piece of what's coming in is finding the ways to take care of yourself when everything outside of it is a little chaotic. And so I'm just going to leave everyone with that little nugget here, particularly during the holidays when things are already a little hectic and busy and we're going in a million different directions and making sure everyone's taken care of. Make sure you put yourself on that to-do list.
Definitely. I think that's really important right now. Like, I can feel it in my own energy. Like, I feel like I've been sick like 3 times in the last month and a half. And I feel like I'm like, okay, what are we doing? I feel like I need to do more in the preventative piece instead of always just like reacting and dealing with it. So I think that's going to be my goal. Health and wellness for 2025.
I love it. Before we dive fully into everything, I thought we'd put our little, what small promotions we have here just at the beginning. For me, I have a tarot workshop coming up on January the 4th. This is an opportunity for you to come. We're going to do a small meditation and pull cards for each of your months for all of next year. So you gain some insight and clarity on what energy is coming your way. be in circle together and in some community. So that's fun. You can sign up. It's just $5. Hold your spot. It's kind of limited because we don't have the capacity to have a gajillion of us together on Zoom, but you can sign up. There's still some spaces left on my website. And then I'm also going to have a 2025 preview PDF. This is for those of you that either couldn't do the illuminating forecast or are just wanting to get sort of an overall view of what's coming. I'm going to have that with transits and some other bigger details than what will be available in some of the other offerings. So that'll be coming up also as just a low price PDF on the website here in the next couple of weeks. So other than that, I am going to take some time in January to go through all the classes I purchased during Sagittarius season.
I feel like we all need that time to be like, okay, how many things have I committed to that I haven't touched in the last 3 months? I will be doing that too. I am just going to have a little bit of a quiet time myself in January. I have a lot going on. I'm going to be packing to move and all kinds of things, which means I think that's going to become some very interesting podcast episodes, some solo episodes finally after a year. I think it's been since I've done solo episodes. So that's what I'm going to be planning towards, is more so in the content area as opposed to offerings for you to purchase, which feels really good for right now. If you've ordered one of the year ahead forecasts, those will be coming by the end of the year. And then in the new year, I will open up my books again for some readings, especially oracle card readings. I think that's going to be the first thing to go back on the books because those fill me up too. I feel like they're so fun to be in the energy of. But I'll be sending out my newsletter by the end of the year as well. And that will be sort of the usual, but it's also going to include a little bit of a preview of some art that I've been working on and some other things that have been happening behind the scenes that I haven't really been sharing. You may have noticed that there was nothing for Sagittarius season. There was no newsletter, no document that came out. So I feel like there'll be some little snippets of that as well in the Capricorn one.
It's always exciting when I think we come back after a break like that because things feel fresh and exciting and new. So I can't wait to get your Capricorn newsletter. I think if you had sent me Sagittarius, I don't know if I would have had time.
Yeah, I think it's been honestly the most chaotic few weeks ever. I cannot believe we are already this far into December. We're recording on the 18th, and I honestly, genuinely feel like we say this all the time, but I moved back. I went back to my apartment on November 1st, and I feel like that was 3 days ago. Like it feels like this entire last 6 weeks has just been a blip. I cannot even fathom how much everyone else has been going through with everything going on. Like there's been so much in the collective happening, but also like for me personally, and I feel like everyone I've talked to has had a similar experience in these last few weeks.
And I think it's been, I don't know about you, that Gemini full moon was super intense. I didn't expect it to be. I felt like I was kind of holding space for everyone who was going through these massive ups and downs. And then all of a sudden the moon moved into Gemini and I just kind of, I feel like I've been shook a little bit myself in the last week. So hoping that all of the insights we bring through for you help make you feel a little more like you're on stable ground and to give you some clarity. We did cover most of December, but Andrea and I both agree that we need to recover this because these last few weeks of December are pretty intense. And so Andrea went ahead and pulled some new cards, and I am going to read through some of the astrology again and try and add some depth to what will be coming through with this before we move into January. So are you ready to share your cards? I'm excited to see what you got, honestly.
I am ready. I'm going to do just really quick recap of what the general vibe was when I pulled. I didn't pull per week when we did it last time. I just did what are we going to be experiencing in the last couple weeks or so of December. And now that we've been in it a little bit, I'm like, okay, this checks out, this tracks. Because what we got was a combination of wands and cups. So we had some fire and some emotion. And I was like, you know what? That actually now is feeling very accurate. And what I found was interesting is that we had the Five of Wands, which is like a battle that you're fighting through to come out to a victory, because the Six of Wands is the victory card. So this is like you're going through it, but you're getting somewhere. It's like that movement where sometimes it takes a bit of a shakeup, it takes a bit of a battle or a conflict to come out the other side. And we had the Eight of Wands with that, which is like very fast energy. So when you think about it, we were just talking about how quickly these weeks moved through and how chaotic it's been. So if you're in a battle and it's being, amplified and moved forward really quickly, it's, I think, for our benefit, because we had the Two of Cups with that, which is, partnership and connection. And I think it is leading us towards a more positive outcome. So maybe you had a conflict with someone, but it was to come out the other side with a better understanding of each other. Or, if you were having a hard time internally trying to figure something out, and now you came up with an idea that might be a way to connect with others or to connect your story to other people. So I think if you're experiencing a lot right now and you're overwhelmed, I think that energy, looking at it again now, I haven't looked at it since we recorded. I was like, you know what? This actually makes me feel like I'm on track, at least. I think it does give me that hope that it's moving forward. And then when we come in for the actual weeks that we're covering for Capricorn season, from December 21st to the 28th, I pulled the Justice card, which is the 11. And that makes a lot of sense to me, because that is coming to an agreement. It's having fairness come into it. It's having a more balanced perspective, is the phrase that came up with this the most, is the balanced perspective. And I think even myself, everything I've been navigating the last few weeks, this week, I've been weirdly calm. Like, I was going through it for a bit and I've been like, you know what? I kind of understand why this came up. I can see how, I can take this and apply it to what comes up next. And it also made me realize that, like, coming into balance also is what Emily was saying with like the self-care, where it's like, even that piece of it feels like it's important, like the self piece of that justice. Like, what have you not been doing for yourself? How have you not been treating yourself fairly? Have you been weighing your actions as heavier than someone else's in a situation? Like, how have you been putting too much on your side and not enough on someone else's? And I think that is part of life. It's part of being human. We're always going to have this constant check-in with ourselves when something doesn't feel right. It's like, why doesn't it feel right? Am I not putting enough into something? Do I need to put more of my energy into something to make it move forward? Am I expecting too much of other people? I think there's a lot of ways to come into balance with something like that. I've also just been seeing 11s a lot, like in December, especially like the 11th of December, the 1st of December, like there's been a lot of that energy coming in. And I think it's spirit trying to wake us up again. Like, it feels like this energy where we had the Two of Cups and like the 11 is a 2 technically. And so I do feel like there's support there. And it's spirit just trying to get us to see the magic again. Because I think we've been in it for a little while now. I think some people have been having very high highs, but a lot of us have been having very low lows at the same time. And I think that's where the balance is coming back, where it's like, okay, we've been to the bottom, so it can only get better from here. And yes, we may have some more dips because that's part of the process. But if you just keep in mind that spirit is with you, I've had some beautiful little nudges from spirit myself in the last little while that were reminding me of the process even. I think that's been a big part for me, is like coming back into balance when I want to be connected or when I want to be creative. That's why in my podcast, it's always going between where I'll be really talking about creativity for a while, then I'll be going back into spirit stuff for a while, because they feel the same to me. That energy of going through the process, where a big part of the process is just taking things in, taking in the inspiration, looking at other people's art, listening to other people's podcasts about spirit, listening to astrology, Emily and I connecting and sharing how tarot ties into astrology for the month. Like, all of these things don't require a lot of output. It's just a lot of input. And then when I feel filled up and I feel like I've taken care of my mental and emotional being, yeah, my physical body can be ready to go, but sometimes my mental energy just isn't there. And so I think we forget that. For me, I get frustrated with myself every art project where I'm like, why is nothing coming through? Why is nothing coming through? But as soon as I kind of give up and start just browsing other people's work and going on Instagram and, going through books and things, all of a sudden I have this feeling that I'm like overflowing. And that's when I create. That's when I get downloads. That's when I feel like doing a solo episode. That's where I get the inspiration from. And I think It's taken a lot longer because I resisted it so much for the last while. But I forgot that like for years I was doing weekly podcasts because I would just be constantly talking to spirit and getting influenced by what was coming up and seeing all the signs. And so I think this 11, as much as yes, it's the justice card, there's a lot of like could be legal matters, could be very, traditional meanings that could be coming through for some people. But I think also it's that reminder that we do have to give ourselves credit for what we're doing and remember that we do have that support from spirit to help balance it out. When we're feeling really heavy, spirit can also put their weight in and help us feel like we're in control again.
While you were talking about the Justice card, all of the things that are coming to fruition and how up and down our political systems are, I literally had a notification on my computer that the Supreme Court here in the United States is going to hear a case about the TikTok ban. So it may, who knows what that's going to bring up, but there are so many, it feels like big pivotal things that are starting to come to a head. And the image that spirit keeps bringing up for me around particularly solstice and the 21st this year is the idea that we need to sink back into the rhythm of what that system means. So understanding that it is the longest night of the year, it is the most dark period. And yet we know instantly the next day as we start gaining that light again, that there is the hope. And so thinking into the rituals around that, for me, I'm really going to try and make this a pivotal point this year with redoing my altar. I think I'm even going to move some things around on my desk. I want to really honor that this is a pivotal point and remind so many of you that as the light changes, it takes us until June before we have it built back again. But it always comes. There's always that cycle. And I think we've felt very defeated and unsure and that chaos that's been here. And particularly the last 2 Decembers, we've had retrograde, which slow everything down. They make things difficult. Nothing about these holidays or this month that has in the past been very magical and very youthful, very Sagittarian-like, hasn't been. And so there's a frustration that it also feels like, well, can't things just be the way they were? And so what I want to share with everyone is that when you're going through these waves that come, ride the tops of them. Don't sink to the bottom. It's about making the ride as smooth as possible. You just need to find whatever pace is good for you that allows you to move through this in a way that doesn't rock you each and every time. So that's kind of what has been coming up for me. I'm really excited about solstice this year. I think it's a time of year where we get frustrated. And I think this has to do with where we've had Pluto and Capricorn for so long because we're used to everything moving us forward. I constantly need to be better than what things were the day before. And really and truly, it's about just being in that exact moment. And that a moment is just as precious as the next moment. We can't make every single one of them better. So that's my encouragement for you on the 21st is just to pause, to really understand that you will burn out fast if you don't take this time to be slow right now. The 22nd, the moon is going to move into Libra. This is just going to kind of keep that level-headed and also a bit of that justice feeling because you're going to be aware of how you're affecting others, how others are affecting you, and just try to remove the excess stress that might be coming in from the weekend. On the 23rd, this is an interesting day. We have the sun and the north node in a tight 90-degree square. And so this is the ideal version or the part of our life in that north node that we don't fully understand. We want to embrace it in this lifetime, but sometimes we don't quite have the skills or the necessary tools to harness it in a way that we may harness the south node. And so the sun is really here to kind of illuminate that for you and say, okay, if you've tried it could you try it again, but maybe with a twist, with a peppermint twist, with something that feels a little bit different, and be kind to yourself because the future version of yourself is worth fighting for. The other beautiful thing about this is that Venus is going to be also kind of in this harmonious angle with the North Node. So it's going to soften the edge a little bit. This to me feels like putting a boundary in place, saying no, not saying I wish I could, but I am going to do X, Y, and Z for myself. Lean into that some of this week in particular. The 24th, okay, this is like a perfectionist alert. That's what I called this day. Because Jupiter and Saturn, this is the third time they're coming to this 90-degree square. So we've had this already twice, once the end of November, once the beginning of December, and now the third time. So if there has been something that has shown up for you as a pattern in the last 6 weeks, this is likely part of it. It's the feeling where we want things to feel good. We want to expand. We want to keep moving forward. And then Saturn is like, but what about the details? You have to pull back. You can't do it all. I said, in my horoscope, put a little extra nog in your eggnog. But it's again this feeling of doing what you can. You can't be everything everywhere for everyone always. And you have to put yourself somewhere on your list and hopefully nearer the top. On the 25th, what's interesting, late at night, we're going to have the moon shift into Scorpio. So this can leave you just feeling a little bit like there's a little more tension in the air. Of course, the next day it's like, oh, I have to deal with the aftermath in some way. And I would tell you that if there are triggers, just really double down on your filters. Nothing has to be reset in a day. We didn't create this moment in one day. You can't undo it in a single day. So just be a little kind and still with yourself. On the 26th, Mercury is going to be in Capricorn, but it's going to be battling it out with Jupiter and Gemini. This is a very in your head kind of day. A feeling where you might feel like the thing you didn't want to say in the back of your head is going to fly out the front. This is where you're going to be tired of relatives or children or animals or whatever it is. It's like the thing you don't want to say might come flying right out of your mouth. I talked about being quiet as a mouse. Just practice going inside, calming some of that internal mental chatter because it's going to be on overload. And it's going to be kind of in a self-critical or critical way, even for others. On the 27th, we have another day of challenge. I'm so sorry. Again, this is Mercury and Saturn, and so they're squaring off. So again, we had this energy on December 6th when Mercury was in retrograde, and it kind of at that point gave us this airy, dreamlike situation to our expectations for the month. And now it's almost like the weight of that has been removed. The cloth has been removed, and it's like, oh my gosh, back to reality. It's kind of like this gut check in some way. And what I would just recommend is that if you're almost too grounded and feeling critical of yourself and others, just set your boundaries, steer clear of the situations that drain your batteries. And the moon is going to move out of Scorpio and sort of that protective place and into Sagittarius, where you're going to want to at least have a little fun. Allow yourself to lean into some of the projects or activities that you maybe sidestepped during this crazy time of year. And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. Self-care, self-care, self-care. Regulate your nervous system as best you can. And then on the 28th, and I'm so sorry, here's another square. It's funky because in this situation, Uranus is really asking us to look at how we have been managing our resources. Being in Taurus for this last 7 years, it's really been about our money, what feels comfortable, how we do slow down, how we find ways to enjoy ourselves. And so here it is in this square, and it's this feeling of, do our expectations match our reality? And what I want you to focus on particularly again is, how can you stay true to your happiness without letting obstacles fuel a meltdown? So much about moving into next year, and I won't get into it too much before the gaining light, but is in mindset and manifestation, because things are going to be moving really quickly. And so being aware that your circumstances can affect you, but you also can rise above them in some way. It's a really long-winded way to get through what is going to be kind of a rather challenging week.
I feel like that week explains that what I had done is normally I've been doing 5 cards. I've been having a couple days on either end of the month that felt like a separate energy. But I pulled another card because I know this is going to fit somewhere. I just need to pull one more card because I feel like there's another energy that's in the room with us that we just don't know is there. And now that I'm seeing it, I think it's meant to be like an overall energy for the whole month, as opposed to like fitting into one particular place. But from what you were sharing there, I do feel like it's for this week. So I will share the original card. So from December 29th to January 4th, we have the 3 of Cups, which is celebration. It's gathering with friends and family. And I think that makes sense. It's kind of between Christmas and New Year's, it's like leading up to a lot of things for people, finishing out the holidays for a lot of people. The 4th is my birthday. So for me, I'm like, it's probably part of it. But I think there's like that energy of, you are going to be in spaces with people celebrating various holidays across all cultures. There's a lot going on in these few weeks. And I feel like a lot of families, what was coming to mind, which hasn't come up before in this, is that a lot of families have mixed cultures. And so you're trying to hit everyone's family in all of the events. And I think there can be a lot of tension. I mean, there's a lot of excitement when you get to experience new cultures. It's like a bonus if you get a couple different holidays to celebrate. But I think sometimes that can create some tensions. So I just want to acknowledge that. It feels like there's a bit of that energy for some families where it's like different cultures, even just different family dynamics. People have divorced families and you've got to split time. There's a lot going on for people this time of year above and beyond the actual just general activities that you're doing. So that energy came in, but I think that's why it tuned in my brain that this card was meant to be for the whole month. So the other card that I pulled, the bonus card, if you will, is the Queen of Swords. Now, this is what I call the boundary queen. This is another phrase that I believe it was the Art Witch. Her name is Zanetta. She has a great podcast. She hasn't done a lot recently, but I've always loved it. And the way she was describing this energy was, she was like, I think she gets a bad rap. I feel like people think, oh, no, not the Ice Queen, that she tends to come across as. But the phrase that she used that stuck with me, I don't know how it's tied in with a few different ways I've heard it, but basically saying that like by creating boundaries and being clear about it, that allows you to continue relationships. Because when you are not clear or you don't speak what you need, people have no way of meeting that. And so it's really not fair to the other person either. And I think this is where that it's extending from that Justice card, right? Like this energy, this boundary energy is starting right from there all the way through the month. And I think the kindest thing you can do is offer someone a very gentle reminder that you do have boundaries and that like you want to continue being able to celebrate with everyone. But if someone is going to continually cross your boundaries, then unfortunately you're going to have to shift the way that you're celebrating or shift the way you're showing up or how long you're spending with people. And I think because this is coming along with a time where there's a lot of expectations for you to show up for a lot of things. And sometimes I think we have to look at it from all different realms. Like maybe just it's mentally exhausting. Maybe there are dynamics that aren't feeling safe for you. Maybe it's just not financially feasible. Like there's people that are expected to travel and spend gas money or flights and bring gifts to all of these other households when, you're barely keeping it together. And I think there need to be boundaries in a lot of different areas for people. I know in my family, for like the adult children, we all did with my brother's spouses as well. We all just did a secret Santa. Instead of buying each of us gifts, we were like, let's just be realistic. We're all like, doing new things. We're all like moving in the world differently this year. And the most fun thing is just having time together. So it adds it's actually fun because you don't know who got who, right? And we haven't done that before. So just finding new ways of being able to make it like feel equal. Again, that justice energy, I think, is also tied into this, like moving through the next little while. So while we're having this Three of Cups energy, celebrating and feeling free to do that, I think when I think about the general energy, to me, it's a very Capricorn energy because it's very innate to me because my Sun, rising, and Mercury are all in Capricorn. So I have a lot of that energy when it comes to just my general way of understanding things. And that, like, when I know what the structure is, when I know what the boundaries are, then I'm like, okay, then I know I can play around and this is how far I can take it. These are the things I can do. And like, I know what the expectation is. Once I've met that expectation, it's just fun after that. So I think when everybody knows and has the same understanding, like if you're having a potluck, people need to know, are we deciding what category we're bringing? Are we, like if people know what to expect, they're not going to have that as much anxiety leading up to it. People may feel more comfortable coming if they know what to expect, or people may feel comfortable saying no if it's not something that fits for them. So I think this energy is coming in to sort of guide us as we go through all of these transits and squares and things to be able to kind of get ahead of it. So instead of waiting till you're already there and having like 4 people bring the same salad and people getting mad, being like, how did you not know that I bring this every year? Like I could just see the arguments playing out, And it's like, how about we maybe ahead of time just be like, hey, heads up, this is the expectation, right? And I think that Queen of Swords is really helping us to like stand in our power and understand that we're doing it from a place of kindness and a place of love and a place of like, if we keep going at the rate we're going, it's going to burn out, and we don't want that. We want everyone to feel included. We want everyone to feel like they can keep adding people to the family. There's this feeling that I get where it's like, I don't know if this applies to certain people, but it's a very clear energy that I'm feeling right now where it's like, if you're an adult child and you already have a strained relationship with your family, you may hesitate to bring a new partner or someone else into the family. And then your family's going to miss out on how wonderful that person is and like how they're to see the version of you that's with this person. And I think that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but I think that's where being the person to stand up and say, no, if you want me to continue my, intertwining my life and my new exciting things with you, then this is what I need to have happen. So it sounds a little harsh, but I think it's also in a way of like making it fun. Like I just feel a very expansive feeling. Like when you have like I said, like when my brothers, like I had mentioned the Secret Santa thing to my mom a while ago, and she was like, "We'll see." And then my brothers are both air signs, and they came up with the idea, and I was like, "Yeah, you know what? Like this feels good for all of us." And once everybody agreed on it and was happy with it, we're like, "Great, awesome! Now we know what to expect." And I think that, like I said, is one example, but this could show up in a number of different ways depending on how many celebrations you have and how many people you're including in your celebrations as well.
That's a perfect energy, I think, to encompass all of this. What's interesting to me is this is one of the few years where we have a major holiday, 2 of them, New Year's too, in the middle of a week, Wednesday. So we don't have the time on either side to really sink into it. It's like, no, many of us have to go back to work or have loved ones that go back to work, and it's harder to travel. It's harder for everything. And anything you can do that is a boundary that says, yes, this looks different than maybe it has in the past, but this is what feels good this year. It's going to be really important to stick with that. And what I think is also interesting is that we're going to be talking about the nodes changing in January. And this is very Pisces, Virgo energy, sinking into the rituals, being clear in your communication, that daily work, those tasks, in order to have more freedom and flexibility and more joy and more happiness. So I think it's spot on. On the 29th, this is kind of finally things are going to start feeling better. But after 5 months in retrograde, Chiron is going to go direct in Aries today. And it's time to kind of let the booster rockets ignite your purpose and passion again. What I think is interesting about this finally going direct again, the wounded healer isn't just about pain, but also about healing and unlocking your potential. So this is where we're going to start to finally feel some momentum and progress in terms of utilizing some of these lessons. It's like we've been internalizing them and thinking them over. And now it's like, okay, I'm ready to face the challenge. I'm ready to put the work in. The moon is also going to move into Capricorn late at night, just before midnight on the East Coast. And this will usher in the Capricorn new moon on the 30th. What's been interesting, the karmically charged 2024 really forced us to let go of things that are no longer were aligned and ask us if we were sure, and then gave us the spark to be willing to fight for our dreams. In July, we had double Capricorn full moons, helping us to find stability within ourselves because our long-term goals have shifted. With Pluto's grand finale in Capricorn, we experienced a complete disruption to the structures we relied on. You're creating a future now that's truly worth your time and energy, one that requires fewer sacrifices and flows with more ease. This new moon, the first we've had that Pluto is not also associated with in Capricorn, invites us to recommit to our joy and to find the dreams and the pursuits that spark that, and then underline the desire to keep moving forward towards those. I don't want you to dive into setting resolutions in a very matter-of-fact Virgo type of way, but instead to set them as, what do I want to feel going forward? What do I want my days to flow and look like and feel like moving forward? Because that is the goal to harness this year. It's not so much about the mundane task. On the 31st, we have a really beautiful lucky trine between Mercury, who will be in Sagittarius, and Chiron in Aries. This is an opportunity for divine insights and healing. Remember, your worth is not valued by your production. And during 2025, you're going to be finding ways to prove that to yourself over and over again. The moon in Capricorn invites you to recommit to your joy, find the dreams and goals, and just keep moving forward. On the 1st, we have the moon gliding into Aquarius. This is a really fun day on the 1st to maybe stay away from social media, to try instead sending emails or text to the people that you've been thinking about instead of just a meme or a quick emoji. Really reach out. We're going to be connecting in new ways in this new age that we're moving into. So pick up the phone, call someone. They might be surprised that it actually rang and wasn't just a text. On the 2nd, Venus is going to move into Pisces, where for the next month, this planet of love and peace and harmony is really happy as a clam. It's home here. So all those firm ideas you had in mind for 2025, the things we thought about on New Year's, maybe just set them to the side and instead let this energy wash over you with creativity and soulful pleasure for another month. December was rough and we could all use some TLC. So lean into these fuzzy feelings because you won't feel like putting your heart into your work just yet. We also have a powerful 2-day window here with Mars in trine with the North Node. This is going to help you to realize your greater potential, even if it's way outside of your comfort zone. And this is where even when you were thinking about those things at New Year's, they may not be big enough or joyful enough or exciting enough. Things could really build on that momentum over these next few weeks. On the 3rd, we do have Mars and Pluto kind of taking some of the twinkle out of these days. Mars is retrograde in Leo, and it's going to lock into the second of 2 exact oppositions with Pluto in Aquarius. This is new energy. We haven't faced this type of opposition. And for some people, it can feel like a burst of energy. Mars is all about moving forward. In Leo, it's a little stagnant. It's wanting to move forward in big and flashier ways than it's maybe being allowed to. And what's happening in Aquarius is it's forcing you to think about the group, balancing this between yourself and a team in some way. So you could either feel handcuffed by that or you could feel ignited by doing something with a group. There's also a feeling that some people may not want to back down. So just choose your battles really carefully because not everything's going to appear as it seems. The moon is going to be in Pisces for the 3rd and 4th. And things, like I said, people will be a little more withdrawn or keeping things. They're not going to show all their cards right away. The sun will be in Capricorn on the 4th in harmony with Saturn and Gemini. And this is going to bring mental focus and clarity back. Kind of a feeling of like, okay, I can get the to-do list out. And don't let it turn into a pressure cooker. Don't over commit yourself. Just one step at a time. Easy does it.
I feel like that is a positive movement forward. I feel like we're still going to have those blips, those like things that are not going to feel comfortable. But I think in general, like it feels very much like we're moving forward into more positive energy for hopefully a little bit. We'll see. But I think this actually aligns well with the next card that I have. So from January 5th to the 11th, I actually have the Magician, number 1 in the tarot deck. And so I do feel like this is resonating with that energy of the residual new moon energy of, okay, what it feels aligned? How could I imagine a bigger dream? And I think that energy of the Magician often talks about that we already have a lot of what we need to move forward, and that we're always assuming that we need to do more or commit to more, or I need to take 17 more classes before I'm ready to do this thing. Or like maybe I need 4 years more experience before I can launch this new thing. And I think with the way the world is going, it just goes to show you that everything is fleeting, and like you might as well see what happens at this point. I think for myself, a lot of what happens for me is that when I hit a tower moment, I have that moment of how can I plan for this logical thing and what are the small steps I could take? And I go immediately to like the smallest. For example, I worked in retail for years. So even though now I haven't for a while and I've been doing very different work from that, as soon as a tower moment hits where I feel like I might want to pivot a little bit, I'm like, oh, who's hiring it? Like, what stores are hiring? And I'm like, do I want to do that? No, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I think I loved that energy of meeting people and being able to connect people with the right things. I always talk about how I'm a curator in all aspects of my life. I always have been, like matching people to products, matching products together to make them seem like a collection. And I think that is a skill that I have, but it's no longer needed in that realm. Now I'm applying that to other things that align more with my heart, where it's like where creativity and spirituality come together. That's where I want to be applying that. And that's where I'm being nudged to do more of that. And I think if you can think about your dreams in a way where it's like, yes, like maybe you could do something on a smaller scale that would be faster to complete. Like maybe it would give you that sense of accomplishment. And if you want to do that first before you move on to the big thing, fine. But I think you have to acknowledge that that's what it is, that that's not the dream. That's just getting your engine going to attempt the bigger thing, to build your confidence. Maybe you do need a confidence boosting thing, but just make sure it's going in that direction forward and that you're not reverting back to a version of yourself. And I think what I'm feeling around this is that this time of year, you're around family, you're around people that you've known a long time. And sometimes people see you as the old version of yourself. And it makes me emotional because I think I see it in a lot of people around me where you see them like not seeing themselves the way that they could. And they've accumulated all these skills and experiences and connections. And I think that energy is what's sort of playing out here, where it's like, yeah, some of these transits, some of these bigger energies may tend to make you feel like it's safer to go back to a previous version, or you may be told by other people, you know what, that seems a little bit too big. Like, I think maybe you should, you were really good at this in high school. Why don't you do that? And I think it can make you question those bigger goals. But I think this magician energy is telling you like, no, you have everything you need. If there's anything you needed, you would be very aware of it if there was something specific that would help you. And I think maybe it's like you need new tools or new, materials, but it's not that you need more experience or you need to be more of anything. You are who you are, and you are here in this place with this idea at this time because there's an energy supporting that. And I think that's where that 8 of Wands, in like the overview I did for the rest of December, that's the kind of energy I feel. Like once you're aware of something and you're putting your energy into it, there's an amplification that happens with that. So this magician is saying like, you already took the leap in your brain. You're the fool, comes right before the magician. There's the 0 before the 1. And I love that 0 energy. I love that in between energy. Everything is possible. That's the thing. When you're completing one thing and you're like, this is no longer aligned. And you think, oh, there's this big dream I have. That in between period, in that time, everything is possible because you haven't done anything yet. You haven't taken the step yet. And I think if you can lean into that and say, okay, well, if anything's possible, then what can I put my energy towards with this magician? Like the first step the first thing that you put out there as your dream is probably what's going to take hold and you're going to have energy to move forward with. So why not make it the bigger version? Why not make it the more expansive thing that you haven't tried before? And I think because we have this energy of like the boundaries still helping, like the Queen of Swords is still with us, even when we're in this magical energy. And that's like a protection energy. It's like, no, I don't have to listen to it. I can listen in a respectful way and thank people for caring enough to make suggestions and thank them for, wanting to help. But just also saying, that may have worked for me in the past. And like, yes, that's a skill that I'm taking with me, but I'm taking it to apply it towards something new. So I appreciate you for acknowledging that skill in me. Like, thank you for seeing that. But I've actually moved on to a point where this is a very small piece of what I do. I actually now have all these other things I could do with that energy. And I think by having that kind way of wording things, like that Mercury energy tends to trip us up where we say the wrong thing or we snap and we say it in a not nice way. But if we can try and see people with the intention they have, but still seeing it through the lens of like, I am the magician. I'm the one working with spirit. I'm the one setting these intentions. I'm the one putting this energy forward. I'm the one that's going to have to do the work. So why would I set up a goal for something that I don't even want to do anymore, right? Like that doesn't even make sense. Why am I creating an intention for something that I've outgrown 10 years ago? It's not going to feel good. Yeah, maybe you'll move forward a little bit, but you're going to end up back where you were. And it just feels like this is a reminder that, yes, it's important to hold energy that people are giving you and, receive it in a certain way, but you don't have to believe it. And if it's offensive to you, then by all means, just say like, please stop referring to me that way. Please stop seeing me as a 15-year-old version of me. But I think this is really exciting energy because like Emily said, there's a lot of transits. There's a lot of big planet energy changing where we haven't had that before. And it does open up possibilities that literally weren't possible with all of the Capricorn energy and all of that sort of heavier energy that we've had collectively. So especially with technology, there's a lot of opportunities out there that we didn't have 10 years ago when this whole set of energies was set up. So that just feels very, very expansive to me, leaning into that magician energy.
As always, I mean, I think you literally said the word that I have written in my forecasts. I'm just going to dive in because it's so amazing. Starting on January 5th, we have kind of a rather magical window for 2025. And I love that it's only 5 days into the new year and we're already experiencing it. So from the 5th through the 12th, Pluto and the North Node are going to trine one another. And a trine is about comfortable and ease and talent and luck, right? So this beautiful, comfortable, luck-producing energy. So Pluto in the earliest degree of Aquarius is inviting us to break out of our old mindsets that are holding us back. How have you been pushing yourself in the direction of your dreams, thinking that things are going to break free at any moment if I just work harder and a little longer and I double down, something's going to give. And instead, you're really being invited during this particular window to use the cosmic energy to look at the problem from a new angle of ease. What happens if you release your death grip? This is where that magician energy to me comes from. It's like I have all the tools on the table in front of me, and all I have to do is look at using them in a new and exciting way. What happens if I combine them in some magical new potion? It's that feeling. What's also, I think, going to really help amplify this is the moon is going to hop into Aries in the afternoon of the 5th. And we have a lot of Aries energy coming for us this year, which, like I've talked about a million times, is that baby bird energy. I have to step forward into something, and I don't fully know how it's going to turn out, but the stagnation is far worse than the feeling of just jumping. So How will you know when you're inspired? Where does that inspiration come from? That's really a lot of this exciting energy. Okay, on the 6th, we have a busy and emotional day already, sorry to say, but Mars is going to retrograde back into Cancer today, where it will be until mid-April. So it's going to go retrograde until about the end of February. Then it's going to go forward. It's going to take us until the end of April to get back out. This is a long road of digging into our emotional security, any of those relationships, people, places, things that make you feel safe. Where do you feel comfortable and protected? Everyone's going to be acting from an emotional place, but not everyone will be able to navigate how this is going to affect them. Moods are going to be contagious, family frustrations, as well as some generational trauma. And don't even think about trying to move or renovate until Mars goes direct on February 23rd. Mercury in Sagittarius will hit a roadblock today, and it's going to square Neptune. What's interesting, all this fire and water energy is going to leave you kind of steaming and frustrated. Even if you think you're ready to jump, right? You just had this incredible insight and you're like, oh my God, this is my new dream. I just created this incredible potion and I want to move. It's like you're almost kind of overly excited, overly convinced. Instead, try taking a breath and create like a pro-con list. Things might look a little bit different. I'm not saying you shouldn't completely jump, but maybe put a toe in and make sure there's no piranhas in the water before you go all in. On the 7th, there's a little bit less fog today, but you're still going to be deep in your emotions. So the moon is going to move into Taurus. That's going to help you regulate your nervous system. Get some pine scented oils, some frankincense, bring the mood back down to the earth and keep yourself in your body. Also try wrapping up loose ends and detoxing those habits that are no longer nourishing you. On the 8th, Mercury is going to finally glide into Capricorn, and this is really for the next 20 days going to give us that laser beam focus again. We've had it in Sagittarius where everything has felt excited, and this is finally after the retrograde when things felt even frustrating and confused. Now you're going to be looking forward and at the detail. And even though it may feel overwhelming, just remember that an ounce of preparation now will put you miles ahead in your long-term goals. If you find yourself seeking time at home in order to get down to basics, just remember to come up for air and check in with people once in a while. I feel like January is going to be a time when we all disappear into our almost hermit-like back into our spaces. Just don't forget we also need a little human connection. Late in the day, the sun is going to face off with Chiron, and this might trigger some of those deep pain points like being misunderstood or feeling betrayed. Maybe you've shared this excitement like Andrea was talking about, and someone's like, well, it doesn't fit what you went to school for, or what I thought you were supposed to do. But remember, you've got more tools in your belt and even some new dreams. So as you dance forward, don't solve old wound problems with old wound ideas. The 9th is a little bit calmer. Again, with the moon in Taurus, really check in with your body. Are you holding on to any sticky emotions? Pluto and the North Node still have 3 more days together. So this feeling of shedding skin can leave you raw, but ready to stretch into bigger and more amazing version. On the 10th, I've had this song come up, not only in at least one illuminated horoscope, but like every time I tap into January energy, I get the song, All the Things You Said, All the Things You Said running through my head. That is some of this energy, particularly starting around the 10th. You could feel the need to make sense of emotions, particularly with Mars retrograde in Cancer kind of bubbling to the surface. And safety and security could feel fleeting. You might want to pull back from work over the next few weeks as you are trying to get more and more comfort back into yourself. With the moon in Gemini, your mind is going to be racing. So reach out to a friend and try and hold space for one another. And then, not to dominate the conversation, but this is a very large day, the 11th. This is one of our major signature events for all of 2025 already. So from January 11th through July 26th of 2026, the North Node moved into Pisces and the South Node moves into Virgo. This is when the fateful lunar nodes switch signs. They always move backwards, so we're coming out of Aries and Libra. And they really start now their new 18-month journey. This spiritual cycle, which also took place last time in June of 2006 through December of 2007, that's the last time we experienced this, puts a focus on healing in every way, from our physical to our emotional and energetic. Your body is ready to say goodbye to that warmongering Aries Libra cycle that started back in July of 2023. How have you progressed in your relationships since then? The veil is going to be thin during this 18 months. This is a lot more spiritual awakening happening, a lot of people looking to connect in new ways. Just remember, you can't support that free-flowing lifestyle without a healthy dose of systems and procedures to balance it. With the South Node in Virgo, though, we're meant to move away from needing all the answers and really maintain that sense of wonder. Lean into the things we don't understand, but do it in a way that allows, again, for the magic, for the creativity. I think sometimes when we lean into some of that Pisces energy where it's like, I don't just say the awkward thing right now because it's the elephant in the room. What is happening with the drones? Oh my God. And all I want to do is make sense of it. It's like I want an answer. And instead, it's about leaning into the, I don't know. It's cool. Whatever is happening and whatever it does and changes for us is going to be fascinating. And I have to not hyperfixate on the news every day, waiting for someone to say something so that I can move forward in my life with confirmation and information. That to me is the energy that's going to be coming in with the nodes.
That is very exciting energy. And I think that's why the 11 has been sticking out so much. Like, that's the 11th. There's something around that with this shift that's going to be really powerful. I think it's been already kind of sneaking up on us for the last little while, but I do feel that positive energy coming in. And I think, like I said to Emily, I forgot until last week sometime listening to all these podcasts in the background that my North Node is in Pisces. This is a nodal return. So I'm like, no wonder I'm like shifting my whole life and into moving into art and more of those pieces of myself. And I think, yeah, it's always, I was saying to Emily, I'm so Capricorn that I've really been like the guinea pig for the universe. And you have all been sort of like hearing not the details, but you've heard my energy over the last little while of how this has been showing up. But I think when we lean into that Pisces energy, I think that makes a lot of sense why I picked the card that I did for this next final week of Capricorn season, which is January 12th to the 19th. I pulled the Knight of Cups, our dear friend, who has showed up a few times as a little hint in the last while. But I think, honestly, truly, with this, I think it's a very powerful energy. Before it was sort of like, be cautious, don't lean into the rose-colored glasses too much. But I think this is really showing us that that is a superpower when it comes to being in Pisces energy. Yes, we do need structure, but why are we considering it a bad thing to lean into the comforts of art and love and positive energy and emotion and spirit and being connected to one another? And I think that unity, like Pisces, really, for me, the energy I feel into, because each of the water signs has such a unique energy. I think of all the energies, I think water signs to me feel the most vastly different between the three of them. And I think because Pisces has this energy of like how we're all connected and how we're all, I mean, it has to me as a Capricorn, it feels very normal to say, but we're all going to die. You know, we're all going to meet spirit. Why not be close to them now and get a little taste of what it's like here? Why not try to lean into the fact that we're humans having a spiritual experience? And the one thing that, separates us from all of the other creatures on the planet is the fact that we're able to do creative things. We're able to do something new. We're able to connect with spirit and translate that into art and conversation and love and connection. And sometimes I think the animal world and the planet world are a lot better at that connection piece than we are. And that understanding that things go in cycles. We can't control. Like Emily said, we don't need to know all the pieces. We just need to be able to do what we need to do and, also be aware of what's happening around us. We don't have to be like, I'm not personally going to solve the global financial crisis. I'm not personally going to do that overnight. So why am I, refreshing the news feed every 5 seconds? There is a certain amount of awareness we need to have, especially with the Aquarius energy of like needing to know what the community needs, know how can I help the collective. But I think we have to understand too that sometimes you have to wait to see what the invitation is for you. If you try to insert yourself somewhere where you're not as skilled or you're not meant to be there, it may turn you off from wanting to help altogether. And I think we've all experienced that in different times in our relationships where we think, I know better than this person. I'm going to tell them. They're going to be so excited to hear my feedback. But it's like when no one asks you and they are more skilled in that field, I think it's like the equivalent of mansplaining. It's like, I know, like it's the most frustrating feeling as a Capricorn too. Like when somebody tries to ask me a question, if I say I'm really excited about this thing and someone asks me the most obvious question of whether I thought of it or not, I'm going to be annoyed. I'm going to be like, do you think I'm stupid? So I think sometimes you need to really just not stay in your lane. I don't think that's applicable anymore. I don't think in the world we're going into that we are supposed to just stay in our own lane as an individual. But I think, oh my gosh, I just got a clear picture in my head as I was saying that. They're showing me that, like, if we look at the Olympics, something that brings all countries together to be in one place, you can choose to be the individual runner trying to just beat your own time and staying in your lane and being unaware of what's happening around you. Or you can look at it like a relay. I'm passing the torch to this person. We're working as a team. We're all working towards this same goal. And then I think the piece that just showed up so clearly to me is the moments that I think we talk about the most in the Olympics, setting records, for sure. But that takes a team. Even the individual has a coach. They have family supporting them. They have fans coming out to the stage. I'm getting like full chills. I'm down the one side of my body, but it's even the person competing in an individual sport has a support team around them. And they're doing it for the better of the collective. They want their country to be seen, right? And I think if we start looking at it that way, what I was going to say before that, though, was that the moments that we talk about from things like the Olympics and these big sporting events is when, let's say, someone gets injured or someone doesn't know that they're not doing the right thing. And somebody, even though they're sacrificing their own speed or their own record, they may turn around and just help that person up. And then everyone stops and everyone comes to help that person, I think we talk about those moments so much and they impact us so much because we do get used to just wanting to win and wanting to get to the next thing. And I think we forget about that magic and that beauty of the humanity that we have. And I think Pisces is such a strong energy for that. And I think that Knight of Cups, like every time it shows up, it just makes me happy because, yeah, there is a romance to being a human. And again, like what Emily said, sometimes we do have to lean into connection. It can be really easy to just be a hermit and focus on your work, focus on your chores, and just be in your house. But when you get reminded when you leave your house and you have these moments of connection with people, it really does give you that faith and humanity that, like, yes, things are crumbling right now, but something better is coming. And I think the more often I remind myself of that, I even forced myself to leave my house and just work in another environment a couple days last week. And I had so many really interesting conversations with people. I connected with people about art and all these things that like people had never met before. They just happened to come in the space at the time. And I think that did solidify, like, yeah, I've been in my apartment barely leaving for weeks, just trying to get through stuff. And I got more work done that day than I had in a while because I just had that energy filling me up. So I think as much as we poo-poo on the rose-colored glasses and the people that are in the clouds, whether we like it or not, that is going to be the dominant energy when it comes to that Pisces energy. Like, how can I have more freedom and more space and more time for creativity and the things that fill me up? And with that energy that Emily was saying, with the veil being thinner and having more connection, like we're going to, if we ask for the answers and we ask for the support from spirit and we ask what's next for me, don't be surprised if the answer comes immediately through another person, through a connection, through something that is helping you stay aware of all of the invisible support that you have around you. So if we keep in mind that love is the thing that connects all of us and that keeps us united, we're going to need that. Like that I feel it so strong in my body right now, but this connection between Aquarius and Pisces, that connected energy of like the Aquarius is like the person who's the advocate here as humans, being like, this is what needs to happen. This is the technology. This is the community. This is how we create a structure. But the Pisces is the energy that flows through people that makes them want to be a part, that draws people in, that allowing spirit to guide you into that. And I just think there's a reason we're all going to be leaning into this next year. And we're, again, going to need it. I think it's going to be a bumpy road to get there. But I think having these constant reminders of these little moments, if you can hang on to them, is going to really be like a glimpse into what the future could look like if we all just collectively agree that sometimes more structure and more rules and more oppression is not good for literally anyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And when you were talking and getting that download about the Olympics and really the energy moving forward in terms of, am I a team player or am I an individual? That's so Aquarian, right? The feeling of wanting desperately to be a part of the group and also, ooh, but not that group, or ooh, not in that way. But, and so if I'm not going to fit in a way that I used to, I'm going to do my own thing until the group forms with me or around me, or I find it based on the action of doing what I was meant to do. Instead of, it feels like this very Instagram, like I'm just going to, if I put out 100 posts a week and I do the reels, and like I'm forcing myself into this one direction, this one path, where instead it's like, no, this is what I'm doing. And it's my own complete different way of doing it. And that it just is what it is. I think that's a big part of what we're leaning into. On the 12th, the moon is going to shift into Cancer. Again, it did that just before midnight on the 11th. And it's going to also influence this trine between Mars and Neptune, who are both also in water signs. We have this conglomerate of heavy water on the 12th. Mars is in Cancer retrograde, but psychic Neptune is in Pisces, a moon in family-oriented emotional Cancer. If you have already a lot of water in your chart, this could be a kind of a rocky period where you feel some of this shedding and expansion, but excitement, but intuitive hits about what could be. Your intuition is going to be off the chart. But with Mars in retrograde, the truth is going to be a little blurred. There's going to be that feeling of, but if I do that, what does it do to my security? So tap into your spirit team, meditate, pull some cards to really access this unique energy pattern and let the dreams and the messages flow over you. I think this is going to be like the 11:11. So we were talking about 1:11. To me, this feels like a very portal type of window. And I don't believe in those, Jeff. I'm a very grounded earth sign who's like, no, 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 no. This one feels very different. So, and I also want to say you pulled the Magician, which is the 1, and the Justice, which is the 11. So just leaving this here for everybody. Okay. On the 13th, just when you thought there couldn't possibly be any more water, the moon is now full in Cancer at 5:27 p.m. Eastern. The healing power of water is pure magic. And really, we're only just beginning to understand the ability that water has to retain memories and emotions. I really feel like this moon is inviting you to release worry and surrender to trust. You already know what you need to know. It's in you. Fear and worry distract us from being fully present in the moment. And instead, we need to recommit to our own joy. This final housekeeping moon invites you to release and remove what you need to in order to make room for growth and expansion. You can't put anything else in your closet without taking something out first. How do you manage your worry? Are you over planning and staying stuck until everything is perfect? There's an opportunity to release some of that. On the 14th, playing off of yesterday's worry, Venus in Pisces and Jupiter in Gemini are going to butt heads today. And what feels good in the moment may not actually bring you as much joy and abundance as you thought. Things are going to feel supersized today, and no one has ever felt better after 70 ounces of cola. Like, supersize is not the way to go. So stop comparing your progress to everyone else's and carry your own spotlight just for yourself. The moon is going to move into Leo at 4 in the morning. So while you'll feel brave and ready to step forward, be sure it's on your own path. On the 15th, it's like tug of war, except you're the rope. This is one of the more tense days of the year. So we just went from this beautiful energy on the 11th to now this on the 15th. The sun is in headstrong Capricorn, and it's going to oppose Mars retrograde in Cancer. This also, I really believe, is a theme for next year, and we'll dive much more into it. But it's work-home balance. Setbacks, delays, even domestic family and drama are all possible with this energy. Who do you choose? It's important to be clear and recognize who's a drama queen and who's in genuine need of your support. If you're always sacrificing, try out a new boundary. If you've always put work first, try cashing in on a sick day. Can you trust yourself to handle this in a new way that you haven't before? The 16th, the moon is going to move into Virgo. This finally will be kind of a couple of quietish days. And really, as much as, the nodes being in the South Node being in Virgo, it's not telling you to abandon routines. It's telling you to pick the ones that really support your well-being. Drink your water, take your vitamins, go on a little menti health walk. Now isn't necessarily the time to jump into the new project, so maybe start focus on tying up some of those loose ends. The 17th, the energy is building for a big meetup tomorrow. So today, just really stay clear in taking care of yourself. We've got a lot of this pendulum energy this year. So making sure that you're okay day to day is more important than these big long-term visions. Okay, the 18th. Get ready to check on those runaway fantasies and up your dosage of self-confidence. Venus and Saturn are going to meet up for the first of 3 conjunctions that we're going to have over the next few months. This is when they kind of join in the same space. They make their own superpower. They become their own planet in some way. And what's tricky is that these two aren't really the best of friends. Saturn is willing to push forward for the greater good, despite the discomfort. And Venus just wants everyone to get along. This could cause some eye-opening disparities when one claims to be an expert and the other claims to have intuitive knowledge. Now, Mercury will be in harmony with Saturn on the 18th, so it's going to help you at least explain your point of view. Anything that comes up today will likely come up 2 more times later this year as we move through varying degrees of commitment to your values. And with the moon moving into Libra, this might help smooth situations, but don't let yourself become kind of people-pleasing in some way. And then thankfully on the 19th, the moon's, no offense to Capricorns, the moon slides out of Capricorn and into Aquarius. And what I'm excited about in terms of this is that this is the first time we're going to have an Aquarius season with Pluto also here. So it just feels like everything is fresh and new this season and this year. And while we have kind of this sticky situation coming up, I have to say I lean more into that Knight of Cups energy. That even though these difficult days might be coming, like we're going to be looking at them in new ways.
That feels very hopeful. And I think, being a Capricorn that's been pummeled for the last while, I think I really do believe it this time, as much as we have been in this cycle of cautious optimism for what feels like centuries. I think it honestly feels very different. The energy just feels different. Even as challenging things are coming up, I'm seeing them, I'm allowing myself to move through emotions more. I think I've learned a lot of that over the last year where I'm immediately allowing it to come through. I'm not like, I don't have time for this. I'll deal with it later like I usually am. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to feel it in the moment. And I've come to clarity a lot faster. And I think if we can lean into the emotional energy, and I think having so many shifts happening, it's like, yeah, I feel more for the collective and I feel more like grounded in the energy that as much as things may feel uncomfortable for a while, we are moving into something that's going to be supporting more people. I think with that Olympic energy, one of the things I was also feeling is the people who are used to just winning without any pushback, without any resistance. It's time for us to be the ones to stop and go back and make sure everyone else is okay. It's actually really interesting because I'm seeing it in like a weird phrasing, but before it was like, it didn't matter. It was like win at all costs, right? Like your only goal was to win. And that's all people were looking for is who is winning. That's who I want to be like. That is like my role model, regardless of the fact of who has to lose in order for that person to win. And I think what I'm seeing it play out like in situations like on TikTok and like seeing smaller things, also on the large scale too, but I'm seeing it in the fabric of society more so than just what we say we want everyone to do. It's like how things are actually playing out, where it's almost embarrassing if you win at the expense of someone else now. If somebody gets ahead because they didn't give credit to someone else or they steal it from someone, they get called out now. And I think the more that happens, I think the more we're actually getting closer to everyone having a seat at the table and everyone being included and people who are naturally in a position where they could easily win, that they're seeing how that's actually a little embarrassing. Like, how did I get this far without actually doing any work or without realizing who wasn't even allowed to participate? I was basically, when your only competition is people who also did nothing to get there, it's like, what are you actually winning? What did you achieve? What did you do to get there? How is that something to celebrate? Why are we celebrating people who have done essentially nothing for anyone other than themselves, right? And I think the more we actually have the blinders off to see that, the more we're like, wow, it's not actually an accomplishment unless you did something. And yeah, sure, there's some things that you're just naturally great at. And that's not what I'm saying. If you're naturally great at something, amazing. That's what you're meant to do then. But I just mean the people that are winning in the capitalist and, the structures that we're trying to get rid of are probably needing to take a look at how they got there. And I'm not saying everyone should just give up, but I think it's the idea that, like, how can I help other people, come into this space? And how can I see a way to have my legacy be something other than just what I did? How can my legacy be something that includes others? Like, how can my legacy be that I did something in a way that also opened up the stage to other people as well? Yeah, that just came in really clearly for me with that Olympic analogy, that idea that if you're only winning because other people have to lose, then you're not really winning. No one's going to win. Okay, it's coming in. I don't know why it's coming in so clearly now and not when I was doing this card, but it's showing that there's a greater sense of accomplishment if everyone's starting with the same skill level, the same, bearing. If everyone's starting at the same place and then you win, then it's because you were actually competing on a stage that was equal and you actually earned it, as opposed to having like a 10-second head start in a 15-second race. Like, how are you going to feel proud of that? How are you getting there being like, yeah, I won? It's like, we all just saw you like leap 10 steps ahead before everyone else got a chance to start. So it's just showing like that feels like the energy we're stepping into collectively.
I think that it completely encompasses Aquarius, and so much of what we're going to be facing over the next 20 years is exactly that. And it's fascinating to me that we're already even in the first, not even a whole degree, I don't think yet, seeing that start to play out. And I think it's only really going to continue in new ways. So I'm excited for it. I think that's everything we have for Capricorn season. I have no movie picks. I got nothing. You got anything?
No, I didn't even get that far in this one because I've just been, treading water. But I think honestly, just the general energy we've been talking about, I think you can think of probably as you're listening, you can probably think of characters or movies or TV shows where there is somebody who does try to lift everyone up. And, I think there's a lot of, if you just think of any movie that has to do with activism really at this point, like an Aaron Brockovich or something, those kinds of characters that, stick with a generation of seeing what's possible when somebody actually just is persistent in caring about other people. I think it's more of an energy, I think, this time than one particular movie or character. But I think you brought up a song too. You brought up a song this time. So I think that it was sneaking in just in the general messaging we had more so than one particular thing.
When you were talking about being pummeled by Pluto and Capricorn and being a Capricorn, I had this image of you being like washed up on the shore on a beach. You've been in the rocks and in the tidal pools, and every bump and bruise, you're completely worn down and smooth. And someone comes along and there's seaweed in your hair, find you. You're like Daryl Hannah and Splash. They like find you on the beach and they're like, oh, she's so precious. She's everything we wanted. She's like the gem on the beach. I feel that energy coming through too for what we're moving into. It's like we're all battered and beat up and bruised. And now we're just here to witness and recognize the brilliant and the gem-like quality of each of us as we are. So you keep moving forward, you little mermaid, cheesy hero.
I love that. I think that's so true. Yeah, we've all been through so much, but it also has been strengthening us and showing us what gifts we have. Sometimes when you're forced to just act without having any time to think about it, you actually learn what your skills are. And I think I've always been pretty calm in a crisis. I think maybe that's why it hasn't appeared like I'm really struggling that much and I've just kept going. But I think there's so many people that have been doing that for so much longer. And I think in the terms of the Aquarius energy, there are people who have been alone in the fight for so long that it's time that more people join them. And I think that's why that activist energy really feels like, to me, the focus, where it's like, yeah, there's people that have been known to be doing this work, but I think it is time for more people to support them because one person can only do things for so long. So yeah, I'm feeling good about this. I do feel like we're going to have a very interesting Gaining Light episode. I feel like you'll have to buckle up and grab a beverage and lock in because I feel like it's going to be a long one. But we will be doing the PDF as we did last time so that you won't have to re-listen to the whole thing throughout the year when you want to check in. You'll be able to just look at the PDF and see what the transits and what the cards' energy were for each month. And hopefully that'll be useful because I think it's going to be kind of a roller coaster.
Thank you, everyone, for listening today and continuing to support. And we're excited to see you soon with Gaining Light. Have a wonderful Capricorn season, a beautiful holiday, no matter how you celebrate, where you celebrate, or what magic you call in to support you.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Spirit Crumbs. You can find me on Instagram for this podcast at Spirit Crumbs, or you can also find me at Concrete and Crystals for my own spiritual offerings and more tidbits about my own journey. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.